Today on Locked On Red Wings, player evaluations part 3, and the Griffins drop game 2.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I'm formerly of 97.1 The Ticket, while Scotty's the host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. Today's episode is a pretty stacked one, honestly, so we're going to have to try and keep things timely and tight for you guys here. Griffins drop game 2. That's how we'll lead off the episode. Try and contain that just very forgettable performance against the Rockford Ice Hogs in Grand Rapids to one segment, and then we'll carry on with player evals for segments 2 and 3. First and foremost, Scotty, how you doing this evening? We're recording this one late because of the fact that the Griffins played an evening game, so we have a game recap to do.
Doing pretty well, man. Yeah, doing all right. Tigers winning. Unfortunately, the Griffins losing, but there's still a whole series left to play. So
yeah, I mean, it's essentially a best of 3 now. It's evened up at 1 apiece, and that performance today by the Griffins was lackluster, to say the least. I haven't watched, obviously, I'm watching Griffins now here in the playoffs, but because it coincides with the Red Wings season, I didn't get the opportunity to watch many games during the regular season, but I'm hearing a lot of people say that might have been the worst home game the Griffins have played all season long there at Van Andel Arena on Wednesday night. And I mean, you can go a couple different directions for difference makers in this one, Scotty. What do you have as your difference maker in this game?
Yeah, I honestly, I think the biggest thing for me is probably special teams. Like this is and like obviously going over on the power play is never awesome in a game that you look down and they ended up losing by 4, but it was relatively close for the first 2 periods. And then, but I think for me, the bigger one is honestly penalty kill, especially there was a penalty kill later in the game. I want to say third period that they failed on as well. And just, that is really tough. It's really hard to win hockey games when you're not scoring on the power play and you're giving up a goal every single time you're on the kill. Not too much of a recipe for success. So I think that when you look, those add up very quickly, as we're all well aware. So I think in a game that ended up being a 4-goal game, that's a pretty easy place to point to.
Yeah, absolutely. The penalty kill, and the penalty kill was the defense on the penalty kill is more of an extension of the problems they had at 5-on-5 as a whole. I mean, there wasn't a lot in this game. What's crazy is they outshot the Rockford Ice Hogs still, and I think a lot of that is because their first period, it was 9 to 10 shots on goal after the first period. They came away with more shots than Rockford in this game, despite the fact that they didn't have a shot on goal through the first 12 minutes in the second period. But like, if you watch that entire game, you don't look at that game and go, oh yeah, it makes sense the Griffins outshot them. It's kind of the opposite of game 1, where the Griffins outplayed the Ice Hogs for the bulk majority of that game and just like barely squeaked out a win. This one felt like the Ice Hogs were just doing a great job of really stifling any opportunity the Griffins had in the offensive zone. Passes just weren't there. Shot attempts weren't. They had some really good attempts, but not enough to make it count, especially with how good their goaltender was playing in net, Comesso. But the penalty kill, was just an extension of those struggles, especially in the defensive zone, where they just could not get that puck out of the zone, and they could not interrupt the passes throughout the zone. And, that, of course, the struggles, you mentioned special teams, but they had 2 power plays in period 2. They had 3 power plays total and 2 in period 2, I believe, to get themselves back into that game. And the power play was even just as bad, if not worse, than the penalty kill in this game. Like the inability, again, extension of the struggles at 5-on-5, where at 5-on-5, they struggled to get the puck into the offensive zone. That extended into the power play as well. The best opportunity they had on the power play was, I think, that Matt Luff shot off the post in the third period. It was a really frustrating game to watch, where it felt like nothing was going for him, where a lot of the things that Andrew had warned us about with Rockford going into the series reared its ugly head in this hockey game, where the Griffins just could not get around the physical style of play that Rockford had. and they just stifled anything the Griffins were trying to do.
Yeah, well, and one of the things I guess the word is warned us about going into this series was also just the total difference in style in regards to physicality. Not only just the difference between the Griffins and like other teams in general, but Rockford specifically, just being a really physical hockey team. And again, when you when you play physical like that, and then you aren't able to respond again in special teams, kind of talking in circles, that's again not a recipe for success.
No, and everyone saw how that turned out. If you tuned into the game, a 5-1 loss for the Grand Rapids Griffins. You mentioned the special teams as one difference maker, and I piled on. I agreed with you in that regard, but I think you could say the other difference maker was kind of a focus in on that penalty kill aspect, but that power play goal they scored with 1 second left in the first period, and Mike Hardman's one-timer from the wing that just beat Sebastian Cossa. I mean, that was a stinger. I mean, granted, they had 40 full minutes to respond to that, and they failed to do so. And again, they had 2 power plays in the second period, and they failed to score on that. But they played a halfway decent first period. In fact, they had opportunities in the first. Zarnik started the scoring off for the Grand Rapids Griffins. The Griffins had a 1-0 lead, and then Del Mastro comes back down the ice and ties it up immediately. But, you had a breakaway by L'Esperance as well. They had tons of opportunities, or not tons, but they had plenty of opportunities in the first period to not just take the lead, but then build upon that lead, and they could not do so. And then for them being the Ice Hogs, getting their very first power play at the end of the first period, then with 1 second left to break the tie and take the lead. I don't want to sound too dramatic that was the backbreaker at the end of the first period, because again, they had 40 minutes left to respond, but they just couldn't. And I feel like that one definitely kind of was like a big, not just with the players on the bench where you feel like the energy left, but energy left the arena after that as well, as it was a dead arena. It felt like with Van Andel Arena after that. And that was kind of like a little bit of a mini backbreaker, if you will, in that hockey game.
Yeah, for sure. One, and I don't know, it feels like I'm seeing double, right? Like I feel like we talked about that a lot with the Wings this year as well. Was maybe not necessarily. Well, actually, they did give up a lot of goals right before the ends of periods. To be
Last
honest with
minute,
you, that
yeah.
was one of the things we complained about quite a bit. To be completely honest with you, but yeah, man. Not only just from a momentum perspective, but again, then when you have your opportunities to bounce back later in the game and just couldn't take advantage. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as far as notable performers go in this hockey game, Sebastian Cossa, on where he wasn't tested all that much in the first game, but still looked pretty damn good in that game, and not a great performance by him in this one. Again, similar situation where he allowed 2 in the first game, and you look at how those 2 transpired, and you go, well, there's not a lot he could have done in those situations, right? The Griffins made crucial errors, and those led to goals against. And you could make that same argument here, with the exception of, I think, that first goal that Ethan Del Mastro scored in the first period. He had just barely crossed the blue line. I can't remember which defenseman was standing between he and Cossa, but it was a shot from far out that just froze Cossa. Like, he was surprised that it came. That's one that he's definitely going to want back. The Michael Tepley one in the second period, I believe that was the 3-on-1 goal that was scored. It was either that or the Mike Hardman one in the third period. No, the Hardman one in the third period was a tip, I believe. But so it would have been the Tepley goal in the second period, the 3-on-1. The defenseman back played it as best as they possibly could, but Tepley froze Cossa on the 3-on-1 and just beat him with the shot. But, I mean, really, it's just that first goal by Del Mastro I really would say that Cossa should have had. But even with all that being said, being the goalie defenders that we are, there's only so much defending you can do when you only make 20 saves on 25 shots, Yeah.
I would say so. Yes. Shout out to Austin Zarnik for scoring the 1 goal. And that's the thing, man. They were winning. Like, they lost 5-1. They were winning the hockey game at one point. Like,
they were winning for less than a minute.
Yeah, I didn't say long. I'm just saying, like, they had a lead. It's wild to lose by 4 in a game you had a lead in, but
yeah. Yep. Real quick, just when I say notable performances, it's more of a footnote moment in the game. Albert Johansson dropped the gloves with Doc, and that was fun to see. It wasn't much of a fight, but just cool to see Ajo drop the gloves, and then Taro Hiroshi just lit up one of the players, Wyatt Kaiser, in the corner for the Rockford Ice Hogs, and that was fun to see. But game 3 going to be on Friday. Games series reset at 1 apiece. This game's again at Van Andel Arena, so let's get this bread. Let's get back to it.
Let's get this bread.
We're going to head to a quick break. When we return, we're going to continue our player evaluations from the previous few episodes in segment 2 of Lockdown Red Wings.
Let's get this bread.
Shut up. All right, game off. We got to talk to you guys today about Monopoly Go. And it's like that classic game you played with all your friends growing up. You inevitably flip the table in frustration because, gosh, the game is just so fun, but so stressful because, well, at least in my case, my friends were better than me in a lot of these instances. But with Monopoly Go, the classic hit on that classic game, or the classic twist on that classic game, rather, it's now on your mobile device. You can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you can work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much more to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique minigames like digging for treasures or robot pachinko machines. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and download Monopoly Go free on the Google Play or App Store. Game on. Segment 2, Lockdown Red Wings podcast. Scotty and I are going to transition now. We're going to continue our player evaluations. We're going to try and get through 4 more players, which would leave just 4 players left, which would be perfect because we're going to have at least 2 more games to recap after this weekend with the Grand Rapids Griffins as they play on Friday and Sunday, since we will see at least 4 games in this series. So we'll try and get through as many players as we can today so that we don't stretch player evals too long. I know at some point your guys' attention span with that reaches its conclusion, but we got to juggle a couple different things here with the Griffins in the playoffs. So let's get right into it here with where we left off. What's that? Let's get this bread. Correct. Let's get this bread, Scotty. I just said it, man. I don't know why I said it. I just said it.
No, let's get this bread.
All right. Well, let's see where we left off in previous episodes after parts 1 and 2.
Is there any doubt about this one? I would love to hear an argument for
Lucas.
I would
Raymond.
love to hear an argument for Lucas Raymond not being in Above and Beyond. I would love to hear a winning argument for him not being in the very top.
Well, before we get to that, real quick, let me just list off where people are at based on where we were in previous episodes, in case they missed. Of course, you can listen to that. The last 2 episodes are the ones where we listed the guys already on here, but above and beyond expectations for this season, our own personal expectations, of course. Patrick Kane and Alex Lyon above and beyond expectations. Exceeding expectations is Ben Sherratt, Christian Fisher, and Dylan Larkin. Meeting expectations, JT Comfort, Robbie Fabry, Shane Gostis, Bear Olimata. Below expectations, David Perron, Jeff Petrie, Andrew Kopp, Philly Husso, and Michael Rasmussen. And failing expectations is Justin Hull. But yes, we're going to lead this episode of player evaluations off with Lucas Raymond. And Scotty, I think this is just as Patrick Kane was a slam dunk above and beyond. I think Lucas Raymond, without a shadow of a doubt, is that above and beyond expectations as well.
Yeah, 100%. Again, I would love to hear the argument of anything besides that. This is a guy that going into the year, we were talking about, we need to see a bounce back, like sophomore slump was being thrown around. We need to see a big, step forward taken. And, I think in our midway, he might have just been at exceeding.
I can check.
And he had such a phenomenal second half of the season. Obviously, when Larkin went down, he was the guy that stepped up in a big way as well. Just completely blew past everybody's expectations that were set out for him this season and truly became that, top end, top line producer that we were hoping, after his rookie year he would become. And that is absolutely freaking awesome. So
yeah.
I don't really have too much else to say. I think this is like I said, a slam dunk.
Yeah, very simply, right? Like we talked about how he needs to be. We wanted to see, like you said, bounce back year. We wanted to see him get back into that 60-point range. He had 57 his rookie season. We wanted to see him get into the 60-point range to show that growth. Well, he got into the 70-point range. We talked about how he may one day be like a 30-goal scorer, but he might, being a puck distributor more than a finisher, he'll probably always get the bulk majority of his points via assist. So he'll probably always float in the 20 to 30 goal range. Well, he finished the season with 31 goals. So yeah, in every conceivable metric, Lucas Raymond, crushed our expectations this season, and he led the Red Wings in points. Granted, a big part of that being because Dylan Larkin missed a chunk of games, but he played 82 games for the second time in his 3-year career. I mean, there's just no bones about it. He's going to get paid this offseason, and he deserves to do so. So, yeah,
100%.
above and beyond expectations. Next up, Scotty, if you're okay, just moving on from there. I mean,
Yeah.
don't need to rehash everything we love about Lucas Raymond for 20 minutes, even though we could.
Hey, we could,
won't.
man. That could be a show.
Right.
Off-season idea.
Next up is James Reimer, and this is a really interesting one because
This is a really interesting one.
We talked a lot about James Reimer during the season because of he always felt like he was, I don't know how to say this nicely. Whenever he was in the net for the Red Wings as the starting goaltender, I was nervous because it felt like he was not a capable goaltender at the NHL level anymore, in my opinion. I don't mean that to sound mean. It's just he always felt like he was doing a poor job tracking the puck. He always felt like he was scrambling in the net. Yet somehow he finished the season with an above league average save percentage, right? Like this is a goaltender that somehow did have analytically speaking, had the bounce back season I was hoping for. He had finished the season with a 904 save percentage, which I believe is just 1 percentage point above league average, but still, like I don't necessarily know how that managed to happen, but he did it. And we had him as below expectations back when we did midseason evaluations, which makes sense because his save percentage was lower at the time, but he scratched and clawed his way back into that. And he did have, and to his credit, he did have a few good performances in there. I think he had a 38 save shutout in the month of March, or was it February?
It was
somewhere
the end
in
of March.
End of March, where the team finally started playing a little bit better.
Regardless, yeah.
So, I mean, he did have a few good performances in there, but a lot of the rest of the time, it's just like he was getting wins. I don't know how, but he was. So, like, I feel like it'd be unfair to say he didn't meet our expectations when my expectation for him going into the season was for him to have a bounce back year after his first ever sub 900 save percentage year last year with the Sharks, because he did that. And in fact, at the very minimum, he was a league average goaltender by statistics standards. He was just hard to watch, but he did it. He did it. So, I mean, like, I feel like it would be unfair to put him in below expectations when he did do what I asked for him, even if he did it in the most stressful way possible.
Yeah, no, I'm going to be honest. I think this is a layup for me. Like this is meeting expectations through and through. Yeah, like you go back to, our expectations of this goalie room as a whole going into the year. And you can kind of see we have all three of our goalies now placed on here. So you can, we have obviously Lyon and above and beyond at the very top. And then there's Reimer at meeting, and then Husso's at below, like that's, I think that's spot on. Like Reimer was going to be the backup goalie. That was the plan. And he was that. And we were like, you know what? He's not going to win you games single-handedly, but he needs to be able to step up when called upon. And I would say, especially in the second half, more so than the first half, I guess, he pretty much by definition literally did that to a T. So yeah, I think this is a pretty easy meeting.
I mean, for instance, like there was that stretch there where Alex Lyon had really seemed like he had returned to form, but the team wasn't scoring with him in the net. So he was getting loss after loss after loss, despite the fact that in that 5-game stretch, he had like a 930 save percentage. Meanwhile, James Reimer in that stretch had like a 9.5 save percentage, but he had a winning record because the team was just scoring with him in the net. Like he did his job in the most stressful way possible, but he did his job. So I think as much as he stressed me out, I think it would be unfair to not put him in meeting expectations. So it's a layup for you. I had to fight my own internal demons for this one, but I agree with you.
Fair enough.
We're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the German machine, man, Mo Seider. Man's played 82 games all 3 seasons with the Detroit Red Wings, and he's going to get paid too by the Detroit Red Wings. So stay tuned for that in segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings. Going to talk to you guys today about FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL. Did you see that the Heat got eliminated by the Boston Celtics as well? And FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scott, we got time for probably 2 more. We'll see if we can squeeze in a third one, but probably 2 more. And this is going to be Mo Seider, which this is an interesting one too. It's not as quite of a slam dunk as Lucas Raymond, I feel, because you have the 2 sides, right? You obviously have us, where we understand what was asked of Moritz Seider this year, which was ridiculously too much. But you have the other side that's like, oh, well, his numbers look bad. And like by the numbers, yeah, metrically, they're not super impressive this season. But he was also tasked with far more defensive zone starts and almost exclusively against the other team's elite competition than any other number 1 defenseman in the league. And I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to pull up my graphs. I have my graphs. You guys can check them out yourself. Go to Dauber Hockey, go to their frozen tools, pull up the usage chart, and look up Moritz Seider, Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes, all your Norris Trophy finalists.
Oh, by the way, did you see that nonsense on the timeline? I'll say a prominent hockey program tweeted out, would you rather have Lindstrom or Makar?
Nicholas Lidstrom.
Yes.
Okay, so this is where we're at in the hockey world.
And you don't even want to know who was winning. You don't want to know. You don't even want to know who was winning the poll either. You really don't.
That's ridiculous. Anyways, I feel like you saying that tells me who was winning the poll. Scotty,
it is.
Like I said, go pull up the usage chart. You'll see exactly what I mean when I talk about the ridiculous usage that Moritz Seider saw this season. And for a guy who's played 82 games in all 3 seasons so far, he set a new career high in goals. He is in the 40-point range again, which is impressive for a defenseman who's not utilized like Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar, right? Not trying to say he has the offensive upside they do, because he doesn't.
For sure.
But like he doesn't get the same opportunities offensively that they do either. He still put up 40 points, which is really impressive. He's a great 2-way defenseman that can eat penalty kill, eat power play, and be given the hardest time. I mean, like I honestly might be putting him in above and beyond expectations. And yeah, I'm biased towards Moritz Seider, but I like when it comes to the opportunities, I don't even want to call them opportunities. The tasks he was given was just unfair for him. Like even by a number 1 defenseman standard. And yet he still was eating 20 plus minutes every single night. And then the nights where he played 25 plus minutes, even more so, he looked even better. So I find it hard to have him not having exceeded my expectations, just knowing what I know about how he was used.
Yeah, so my brain was in exceeding. That's kind of the I felt really good about putting him there going into this. I mean I completely echo everything you said. Like this is a guy who was not only tasked with ridiculous deployment through the entire year, as we've covered ad nauseum over the last several months, but on top of that, his partner was kind of a revolving door in the last several months of the season. All right. Obviously it was Wallman and that was kind of the plan. And then, found himself playing with Sherrod a lot toward the end of the year, and they were solid and they were a lot better than the first time they tried that. But I think going into the year, we were hoping for a step forward, and he took a step forward. And not only did he take a step forward just in, like, I don't know, pure just, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Hold on.
No, I know what you're trying to say. He took a step forward in the regard in the way that they were using him. Like they needed him to become the number one defenseman. Like become the number one defenseman. Last year
Yeah,
they were using him like
right.
one, but this year they needed him to be that guy, and he was. So while the advanced numbers might not look too favorably, when you take into effect of his age and what they were asking him to do, and the fact that he did it without complaining, and he still did it admirably. Like he didn't look lost out there in the role. I get what you're trying to say. He took a step forward this year into that role.
Yeah, I think role is really the main point to drive home there. Like this is a guy who has been bestowed the number one defenseman of the team going forward role. And again, like not trying to talk in circles, but like we talk about the deployment so much, and like what he was, the weight of the blue line was quite literally on his shoulders the entire season. And he took it in stride. And certainly, again, like there's a lot of metrics that some people point to about, like that's kind of ugly or doesn't look good or whatnot. He absolutely took it in stride, and I think the world of him, and I think so many people in this fan base do. And I'm hoping that with an improvement on the blue line, an improved depth on the blue line, that could maybe help his deployment not be so ridiculous, but B, I think maybe even help him take that an even larger step forward going forward. He's still so young.
22 years old.
Yeah.
And he's going to get paid. He might honestly, some people aren't going to agree with this, but when you take in the fact that he's a number one defenseman and Lucas Raymond's a winger, I think that Seider could be looking at more money than Lucas Raymond, just simply because of the type of role that they play on the hockey team. That's not to say that Lucas Raymond won't get paid, because he absolutely will too. But I don't be shocked if Seider makes more than Raymond at the after their extensions this offseason. But finally, we got time for just one more, Scotty. I have to actually put Seider in. Where are we putting him? Where was the decision? Exceeding or above and beyond?
I said exceeding, you said above, so you can be the decision maker there.
I'll put him at the top of exceeding expectations.
Sure.
Because I feel like I don't want my inherent biases to rule in the end.
Sure.
So, yeah, we'll put him at the top of exceeding, which means I'll have to rearrange the rest of these two. But anyways, Daniel Sprong, Scotty, this is, I don't want to say interesting because I've been using that word a lot. Well, give me a synonym for interesting, Scotty. You're a writer here. You like fascinating, don't you?
Say what?
You like the word fascinating, right?
Yeah, fascinating is usually, I hate the word interesting. I think it means absolutely nothing, right? Oh, that's interesting. What does that mean? That doesn't tell me anything about the situation. So I've been using fascinating a lot, and now fascinating has just become my new interesting, where it actually doesn't say anything anymore. So I've kind of used that to the point where it's a similar category for me. But yeah, I do think that the Sprong conversation is a fascinating one, though, just because there is, I think this is really, he's kind of the definition of a tale of two halves. I feel like we had a much different opinion of kind of where he might have slid in here at the halfway point in the season.
Yeah, at the halfway point of the season, he was in exceeding expectations, but I think by where he ended up in the end of the season, I think he's at meeting expectations, just because he was exactly who we thought he was, right? Like he was a bottom six scoring winger who didn't provide a lot of defense. In fact, he provided so little defense, he actually got scratched.
He was getting
several games
at one point.
He was getting scratched. Yeah.
Yeah. Not only was he getting healthy, he was getting healthy when the team was losing a boatload too. It wasn't like, we're winning. Like, let's, we can kind of mess with the lineup a little bit. Like, no, this dude was getting healthy when we were in the mud. Like that's, yeah.
He was getting healthy to when the team was desperately trying to win hockey games and could have used his scoring. Right. But he was such a defensive,
still getting healthy,
that they just had to cut it. So, but I still think he's meeting expectations solely because of the fact that he did fulfill that role we thought he was going to be, which is bottom six scoring winger. I mean, last year at the Seattle Kraken in 66 games played, He had 21 goals, 25 assists for 46 points. This year with the Red Wings, he had 18 goals, 25 assists for 43 points. Just 3 points shy of his production last year. He very much replicated what we were expecting out of him. So, like, I mean, you could maybe make an argument for going from exceeding to below expectations just because of how those last couple of weeks of the season ended for him. But I mean, I think he was who we thought he was.
Yeah. At the end of the day, the direct comp we did was to Dominic Kubalik. And like I don't think we, you know what I mean? Like that when we signed him, we were like, oh, we need him to fill in that role of a bottom six guy that is just going to get, shoot the puck and just get shots on net by, any means necessary kind of thing. And that's what he provided. And that's pretty much all he provided, but that is what he provided. And that's what we expected him to. So yeah, I think this is a pretty easy meeting as well.
Yeah. So it's interesting
and what
to see
a lineup those last three are going to, four. Let's not leave out.
You can see down here, I'm trying to upload Simon's face to this and it's not letting me do it. So maybe McLean might have to be the stand-in for Edvinson.
That's
if I can't
objectively hilarious.
If I can't get the Edvinson picture to load. So that's just where we're at. But yeah, here you go now, guys. Our list as of Thursday. Yeah, Kane, Lyon, Raymond, above and beyond, Seider, Larkin, Sherratt and Fisher in exceeding, Comfer, Fabry, Gostisbehere, Mata, Sprong, and Reimer in meeting expectations, Perron, Petrie, Kopp, Husso, and Rasmussen in below, and then Justin Holl in failing. We'll be back. Well, tomorrow we got a crossover episode, so that the finale of the player evaluations will probably come Monday. So stay tuned for that on Monday. Scotty, final thoughts?
I don't think so, man. We ball.
We do ball. Let's get this bread. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.